not only showed them to a few people, but he talked about them a lot, and he talked about knowing the process of declassification. I mean, they've got him from every angle. This couldn't be more serious for Donald Trump, but also more serious for the country. Yeah. In a brief order yesterday, the judge overseeing former President Trump's classified documents case, Judge Aileen Cannon, required all attorneys in the case to contact the Justice Department about getting security clearances, giving them until Tuesday of next week to file a, quote, notice of compliance. That includes all defense attorneys for Trump and his aide, Walt Nauta. Judge Cannon wrote the instructions apply to any, quote, forthcoming attorneys as well, but she did not set any additional trial dates. So he has two lawyers right now on this, right?
Yeah, two lawyers.
Is he gonna have
the end of the order is footnote. P.S. Trump is innocent. I'm kind of surprised she wrote that.
Professor, she didn't say that. No, joining us now, Professor of Law at the Northwestern University Pritzker School of Law, Heidi Trosser. She specializes in the constitutional law of federal government secrecy. You would be the person to talk to.
Yes, you would be, which is actually why we have you on the show.
Here today.
So let's talk.
It worked out well.
It really did. We were going to ask you some questions about the Cubs, but since you're here, let's talk about the process. Talk about just some of the obstacles to a speedy trial because of the need to figure out a way to manage these sensitive documents in a trial setting.
Yeah. Well, so that is something that would be handled presumably through the Classified Information Procedure Act, which is that's a little bit outside of my area of expertise. That's more sort of a matter of criminal procedure, whereas my expertise is more in the Espionage Act and the secrecy elements. But yes,
I did have a quick question for you. I'm sorry about the Espionage Act. How does this play into it, or whatever field that you specialize in specifically?
Sure, yeah, but just to finish that thought real quickly, there are indeed procedures that are specifically tailored for dealing with trials where classified information is at issue. As for the Espionage Act, I suppose, I would just start with the notion that this is a remarkably broad law. In the past, I and others have expressed concern about the breadth of the Espionage Act insofar as it's used to target sources who leak information to the media, often in the public interest. Interestingly, and as I wrote about recently in Lawfare, Donald Trump's own administration prosecuted a record for a single-term president, 5 media sources for leaking information under the Espionage Act. And Donald Trump himself, this was not a matter of the Justice Department acting at arm's length from the president. Donald Trump himself was constantly browbeating the department and publicly doing so, saying, we have to protect classified information, go after those leakers. And now it's the breadth of the act in which Trump finds himself caught because the act punishes any willful dissemination or retention of classified, I should correct that, any retention and failure to return upon request of what the act calls national defense information, which has been defined by courts to mean information that's closely held, that is, that's meant to be kept secret by the government, and that could potentially damage the United States or help an enemy of the United States. And all that's required is willfulness. You don't have to intend to hurt the United States, which I know is something that a lot of Trump allies are arguing you have to be a spy. That's absolutely not true. And it's disproven by Trump's own record of prosecutions when he was president.
Right. Professor Elise Jordan has a question. Like me, Elise went to law school. Unlike me, she knows how to ask a proper question. Elise.
No, I did not go to law school.
Oh, you didn't go to law school?
No,
I'm just a sad, uneducated.
You just play one on TV.
Yeah,
but you can still ask a question.
Well, not only do I not know how to ask a question, I don't know how to introduce.
Well, I can't. I should have taken the.
Listen,
I always wanted to go to law school. I should have taken the unearned credit. But when we have someone like Heidi, who is actually an expert.
Oh, thank God.
We should ask her. It seems like there's such a great difference in how these low-level offenses by, frankly, people who are not well known at all in the public, the repercussions that they face versus when it's someone like a General Petraeus or a Sandy Berger and now a Donald Trump. Why the gulf? And is there any hope that perhaps this time it will be more equitable?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. As you note, there's long been criticism by myself and many others about what appears to be the two-tiered justice system, where it's the little guys who really get the book thrown at them. Because Trump is charged under the Espionage Act, Section 793E, with willful retention as opposed to dissemination, there have been a number of stories, including one that I saw recently in the New York Times, recounting the number of kind of lower level folks who've gotten several years in jail just within the last 5 or 6 years, including folks who were prosecuted under the Justice Department in the Trump administration for doing things like bringing classified documents home, either, in some cases it appeared to be for hoarding or no apparent reason, sort of like what we know now about the Trump case. In a couple of cases to do some work at home on nights and weekends, and got substantial jail time. And what I have focused on in the past, as I mentioned, is a somewhat different scenario, but it's certainly relevant to this case, which is the scenario in which you have media sources, people like Reality Winner, who was a government contractor and said, I keep hearing Donald Trump tell the media that there was no Russian hacking in the election. And I have this document that, it's a very discreet document. It's a single document, and it gives light to that. I think it's really important the public see this. And she released that one document, and it was published. Someone like Terry Albury, who was an FBI agent for many years, and was really disturbed at what he perceived as a series of practices of race discrimination within the department. He was also concerned about some of the surveillance tactics with respect to journalists. And so he leaked a small set of documents to the press. In both cases, as we know, Reality Winner got, I believe it was over 5 years, at least over 4 years prison sentence. Terry Albury was sentenced to more than 4 years. These are folks who at least arguably, whether ultimately you agreed with them or not, they at least had a reasonable defense that, to be made, to the effect that on balance, their activities were in the public interest. However, under the Espionage Act, because it's so broad, that's totally irrelevant. The Justice Department and the Trump administration went after them, threw the book at them. And so it's quite rich for Trump now to be saying, the Espionage Act, whoever heard of that? It's from 1917. It's only for spies. How dare they try to use it against Donald Trump? What a double standard.
How rich indeed.
Yes.
Kind of like the clips we've shown this week of Donald Trump talking about how he was going to protect classified information more than any president.
Yeah, he sure did. He holds it really close.
Yeah,
Northwestern University professor of law, Heidi Quattrosser, thank you very much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you.